What's your bad romance?
Well, didn't that music end at the perfect timing? Thank you all for being here. I see Janet. Oh, and Janet's little kitty. And I am sure we have Melinda hopping on in a second. We will wait like just another minute and we will get started. Hope you guys are enjoying the sunshine today. It is beautiful out my window. Rick's here. Hello, Rick. Hi, Tara. Thanks all of you for being here. Janet, we're going to wait for Melinda, but if I don't see her, we might be kicking it off with you. So stay tuned. I'll tell you what, Janet, while we wait for Melinda to hop on, would you like to give maybe an intro of who you are, how long you've been in real estate, and anything else you want to add?
Sure. Hi, I'm Janet Jarvis. I'm with Elevate in Strongsville. I have been in real estate for 24 years. I spent the first 10 years in mortgage lending. I did both conventional and subprime, and I got my real estate license in November of 2010. So I'm pretty well adept at both sides of the table. Coming up on 20 years that I've lived in North Royalton, and it's an exciting time, believe it or not.
Something I have to compliment Janet on to all who are on. She has been in the business for 24 years. She was on the mortgage side first. Before I was even at Elevate, I always knew who Janet was because I have seen her in so many classes and bold, and she is never too experienced to learn. And I really value that in you. So thank you for being here, Janet.
Thank you, Jill. It's my pleasure.
Yes. And then we also have Miss Melinda Chamberlain. Melinda.
Hi, everyone.
Thank you for being here.
Absolutely. Happy to be here. Just made it in traffic here.
Oh, no worries at all. I know, and bless Melinda's heart. She is juggling between an appointment and this, and she was like, hey, I can be on in my car for about 20 minutes. So I said we would love to have her. Melinda, would you kick us off and let us know who you are and maybe how long you've been in real estate?
Sure, be happy to. Okay, I am a native of Cleveland. I have been with Keller Williams since 2003. So I was in the original group when we opened on Chagrin Boulevard. And I have been in real estate for almost 30 years.
That's amazing.
I run a team. I have a wonderful team, and just really happy to be on today.
We are so happy to have you. And just so you all know, I mean, both of these women are this way. You get them in a conversation and I'm like, gosh, I could listen to both of them forever. They both have a lot of value and wisdom. So we are grateful to have you. And Melinda, since we have you the first, 20 or so minutes, I would love for you to kick us off. Tell everyone, I know you are in the Brian Buffini world and you just came back from a great trip. So give us a little insight on that, what you took away from that, and even possibly how it can intertwine with mindset and what the market did.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Happy to. Brian has been a mentor of mine since I heard him first speak in 2005 when I was in Chicago. I'm also very learning based, so I take opportunities to, learn as much as I can with a growth mindset. But Brian has been a mentor and taught me so much through the years. This seminar we just got back from is one of his favorite ones, called Peak Experience. And if everybody's seen, I don't know if you've seen the movie Groundhog Day, but you should see it. Go ahead and see Groundhog Day, and I'm going to tell you some of the things that came out of it. So Bill Murray played the main role, and he was stuck in a rut, okay? And he was not passionate about what he was doing. And he really needed a mindset check. So, the theme was Carpe Diem, seize the day. And an exercise we did was the average person in the US lives 79 years, and that's 28,835 days. So basically take your number where you're at and multiply it by 365, and then subtract that number and see where you come out is how many days. It puts things in perspective really quick. So Phil is played by Bill Murray, and he lost his vision. You know, he was the worst version of himself because of all the circumstances happening around him. You know, he does have a breakthrough because he's got wonderful people around him. And Rita is one of the people she plays in the movie, and she's got a great attitude. You know, she's relentless no matter what happens. Every day she gets her business done, does her activities regardless of what's happening around her. So Phil has a breakthrough when he basically, he got to his worst because he abandoned his values. And when he abandoned his values, he went sideways. So, you know, when your values are clear, your decisions are easy. So through a hard time, if you stay focused on what matters most to you, it will get you through. You know, he focuses on other people, he regains his passion, and he finds contentment. So they talked about the cornerstone of all transformation through difficult times starts with focusing on others. You know, start with a life of service. So, you know, no matter what happens in circumstance, you can maintain a great attitude. And that was the beginning theme. So what I did in 2008 when the market, you know, adjusted a little for us is I started practicing gratitudes and writing affirmations. So I have been doing a gratitude journal for many, many years. And I start in the morning and I pick 3 things that I'm grateful for. And I think about those things. And then I pick an affirmation for the day. And that affirmation, because of the way our subconsciouses work, you know, our mind believes what we tell it. So affirmations for the day might be, when I recently had a little bump in the road, and I would tell myself through recovery that my body is healthy and strong. And I would write that out 25 times. So if you want to tell yourself that, you know, you are going to get all your activities done, or you are a great salesperson, or whatever it is you want to write down, that you write it in first person. And then I write it 25 times in the morning. And that's kind of just the way I set the tone to the day. So I start with gratitudes, then I go to affirmations, and then I think of someone that could use a personal note. And I think of 2 people, and I think about how can I make their day. And when I write this note, I just think about, you know, that person, what they might have going on in their life. And I take something personal that's happening to them, or maybe something great just happened to one of their family members or something, and I'll incorporate that in a note. You know, I'll start it out by thinking of, you know, either just thinking of you, or you've been on my mind, and then I'll put in a little bit of something special about that person, and just really, how can I make their day? It can be short and simple, but I get a lot of feedback on that from people, that they got my note and how I made their day, or just little things like that to start the day. And, you know, when the circumstances are going around us and we can't control what's happening, you know, the most important thing we can do is maintain a positive mindset. And if we stay in that positive vibration, we can control our activities. It doesn't matter if we don't feel like something someday. When you're in that positive vibration, you're going to do it anyway. And real estate rewards activities. So even though you might not be getting as many at bats for listings, or you might not be getting as many at bats for working with buyers, if you stay consistent on doing what's important and maintaining communication with the people that know you, like you, and trust you, that's what it's all about. You're investing in the relationships. They know you care. And when people know you care, boy, I tell you, it makes all the difference.
I could not agree with that more, Melinda. It is, we forget sometimes. I love what you said, that real estate awards activity, and some of that activity can just be showing people that you care. It doesn't have to be, are you looking to buy, sell, or invest in real estate? You said, hey, I'm thinking about you. Like, that's huge.
Absolutely. I had a neighbor the other night that needed her help. Her husband had to have surgery and she was alone and her knee was all swollen. So she called me. It was about 8 o'clock at night. And she's like, can you help me? Can you help me get to bed? I'm like, absolutely. So, I mean, it took about an hour of my time. I went over there and I got her walker out of the basement. She was able to get all set up and was able to help her get to bed. So little things like that, people don't forget.
Absolutely. Melinda, before I forget, I wanted to ask you, will you share that formula again with the average, you live an average lifespan of 79 years. I would
Yes.
love for people to do that. I'm going to put it in the chat if you could repeat it.
Absolutely. So let's take the example of 79 years of the average person in the United States. You multiply 79 times 365 days a year, and that's 28,835 days. So now you take
1,000, what was it?
28,835.
835. Perfect.
Now you take your age and multiply it by 365. And that shows you how many days that you've lived. And then you subtract that number of how many days you've lived by the average number of days people do live. And you can the number.
Yeah.
So it really puts it in perspective to seize the day and, not let circumstances control things, because you should definitely lean into things you love, lean into your hobbies, lean into your strengths, your family time. Don't give anything of that up. Just be better. Be better when you show up to work. Get your activities done. Prioritize your priorities.
Yes.
You prioritize your priorities and you'll get the important things done.
I love that. Gosh, shoot, I was just going to ask you something with this. This is not the question, but Melinda, let me ask you, so you are the queen of mindset. Rewind back to when the market shift last time. Did you change the structure of your business? Like, did you find a niche? I know you were in the new home world, new construction world for a while. Did you find a different niche, or did you just double down on the activities that you're supposed to do?
Good question. So what I did, first of all, the new construction business was non-existent because the bank stopped giving the builders money. So we were sitting on a few subdivisions. Of course, the builder had a lot out on the line. So I just really worked with what I had and tried to keep that community together. So I might invite them to, an open house, the neighbors or things like that. But what I really doubled down in, I'll have to say, I brought some things and I'm happy to share my my list with you of some of my favorites, but I actually just decided that I was going to
Uh-oh, is this just my internet? Do you hear us, Melinda?
I don't hear her either.
Shoot. Melinda, if you can hear us, you are frozen. We will give her a minute. Gosh, while she unfreezes, I will tell you guys, I remember what I was going to say with her when we were talking about how many days you may have left. Another way to think about that is I have heard people ask, how many summers do you have left with your kids? Or how many summers do you have, to do your vacations or whatever you want? It puts things in perspective. We think sometimes things are infinite and they're not. So I really love, she opened up with knowing your values, and values help make your decisions. And once you understand that, making the best use of your time, I absolutely love. So we may get her back. We may not. I know she had to hop off by 2:20 anyways. So without further ado, Janet, let's bump over to you, my dearest.
Fasten your seatbelt.
Yes. Fasten your seatbelt. I'll tell you, it's so funny. As we were going over questions last night, I'm like, gosh, Janet, I could like, we'll see how many we get through. I could talk to her all day. So Janet, you already have introduced yourself. First, let me ask you, do you see, you were in the last crud, whether it was on the mortgage end or in the real estate end. Do you see any similarities or differences between then and what our market is currently doing now?
Well, I think it's a situation, the fundamental pervasive fear is the same, even though the circumstances are entirely different. Okay. Back in those days, there were reliably 10,000 homes available across our MLS on any given day, reliably. Okay.
Mhm.
The last time we had 8,000 listings in inventory on any given day was right before COVID began. So that tells you how chronically light we've been. And that's now for more than 4 years. And we are struggling to stay above 5,000 listings on any given day. Okay. So market availability is vastly different from that time. Okay. Also, the conditions back when, whether you were going to own or occupy or you were an investor, you could get a home for anywhere between 40 and 70 cents on the dollar. That was just kind of the rule of thumb. And now, you've got sellers laughing at you if you only offer them asking, vastly different. But the fear is very much the same. When you think about, like, especially in the sphere of the first timers, okay? The average first timers these days are between the ages of 27 and 34. All right. So, and they've got a lot of hangups that and things that they fundamentally can't get over, right? Let's just say a mature woman. A lot of them are carrying student loan debt quadruple what I paid 35 years ago.
Mhm.
And that'll hurt your debt to income all day.
Yep.
Also, these same 27 and 34-year-olds, they were between the ages of 11 and 18 when all this was going on. And they heard their parents fight. One lost their job, maybe both lost their jobs. They were upside down.
Mhm.
Maybe they were athletes and pay to play, and there was no money for that. Or mom and dad had to raid college funds just to survive, assuming they could even keep their home.
Mhm.
Or they had to sell short. And you got hit either with a 1099 or your credit was wrecked as if you had foreclosed, right? The implications were big. So they've got all that noise from what they dealt with and saw as children deep in the recesses of where they are. And that's not going to happen to me. I'm not going to get screwed. I'm not going to get screwed. I'm not going to get screwed. It's not going to happen to me. Nobody's going to. So there's a lot of fear among them for that very reason, and I don't blame them. In the September of 2022, there was a report out from NAR that in the month of September of 2022 alone, 60,000 first-time buyers walked away. They weren't even through their due diligence period. Okay. They walked away from their contracts. Wow. 60,000 of them. I dare say out of those 60,000, it wasn't all about a failure of inspection or a failure of terms. I believe it was buyer's remorse. What am I doing? I'm running for my life. I firmly believe that. And again, you're talking about people who were directly affected. They weren't the borrowers, but they didn't need to be, what do you mean? I've got to switch schools. Like, I love my bedroom. I play with kids on the street, and no more. Or I can't participate in the things that I want to in school. There's no money. There's no more, and that was a very, very hard thing to watch and understand that was going on at that time. And so you have them, and guess what? Mom and dad come to some of these showings with buyers, right? Mom and dads are always fun. There's an affirmation for you. Mom and dads are always fun. Okay. And I always tell my clients, my buyer clients, they're going to be mom and dad a lot longer than I'm going to be your realtor.
Mhm.
We can talk about realtor for life all day, but in the end, it's going to be mom and dad that are going to be with you to the end. So, you know, by all means, as long as they're not talking about interest rates from the disco era and, you know, the certain things that are silly now, I couldn't care less. But if they want to come and give moral support, I'm all for it. So that fear that is, I won't say very difficult to help them get over, although there is that. I just kind of stay in the space of, you're either motivated or you're not. Ready, willing, and able is a real thing. And you must be all three if you're going to do this. So, and a lot do consult. They talk to mom and dad. They talk to their friends who got their 2% interest rate that they're never going to see again. They talk about, you know, all these things. And I don't know, maybe I'm a little too direct, but I'm apt to ask, you know, how many people are participating in paying this mortgage?
Right.
You know?
I love that, Janet. That was such a light bulb moment for me because yeah, the situation, the market is different than it was,
Right.
yet the fear is the same. Like
Exactly.
that's where there's a similarity. Now I'm going to pause you real quick because Melinda, I know you only have a couple minutes left before you go. Was there any last words you wanted to give us before you leave?
You know, I would use this change that is about us and what we're in right now as an opportunity. I'd use it as an opportunity to grow. I'd use it as an opportunity to, you know, I had so much like opportunity to like learn from other people, and I would just highly recommend you, you know, be listening to great things, reading great books. I have a book list I'm happy to give you. The way I survived and the way we survived in 2008 was just focusing on other people. We were doing a lot of rentals. We were saving from foreclosure. There wasn't a lot of income coming in, but we were serving other people. We kept focusing on them. If you feel like you're in a rut, just, you know, work on your mind and work on who's around you and, you know, what you're putting into your mind. There was a quote at Peak that I really got a stall that says the only difference between a rut and a grave is the dimensions. So the other one was, remember how far you've come, not just how far you have to go. You're not where you want to be, but neither are you where you used to be. And that was Rick Warren. So I guess my tips would be is just don't underestimate how important the compound effect is. You know, Darren Hardy wrote a book called The Compound Effect. If you do the activities and you continue to serve other people, you know, I just had someone back out of something this morning, but it wasn't right for him. So that was the best thing he could have done. You know, he prayed on it last night, called me first thing this morning. I called the other agent immediately because we were in multiples so that the other person, you know, the next person up could get the house. But it's okay because that wasn't the right thing for him. But, you know, I've worked with his family. I've worked with, you know, multiple people that, you know, that he knows. And sometimes you just have to continue, just realize it's all about the client. And if you have enough activities, you just keep focused on doing, you know, the little things and tracking them over time and just prioritizing things. It's all going to work out because people are not going to forget how you were there through, you know, through the different times. And you show up and you add value. You know, you can bring them things when they don't even ask for it. You can bring them a overview of the market. You know, you can bring them things that just so that they know what's going on. A lot of people, they don't understand what's going on, you know?
Yep. I could not agree more. Melinda, thank you so much for being with us. I'll tell you what, if you send me that book list, because I would love to see it, and you put your name in the chat if you want some recommendations of Melinda's books, and I'll get them to you.
Okay, sounds great, everyone. Have a wonderful afternoon.
Thanks, Melinda.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye. Oh, you guys are just great. So Janet, we do have a question in the chat, but I wanted to follow up on Speaking of that fear, and that is where these markets are colliding as similarities, couldn't agree more. How did you manage client expectations in the last downturn? Are you handling client expectations the same way now?
I think the one thing that really struck me, there are a lot of personal attributes that I can point to that I see in other people, things that I really respect that other people do. And I think about, I had a brother-in-law. He had an incredible gift, and there's some things that you just can't teach. You can nurture little glimmers of certain things. You can aspire to certain things. You can do your best, but there are some things that are just natural, and either you have them or you don't. And my brother-in-law, his humongous superpower, one thing that he was just better than anybody else. He passed away 25 years ago, but just not before and not since him has anybody been able to hold the standard as well as he does. He was able to treat everyone the same, whether it was a captain of industry who could do something for him, or the guy who scrubbed his garbage can and could do nothing for him. He was that same guy and was just himself, gave you the time of day, please and thank you, gave you a good word. And it just flowed very naturally. And so that was one thing that I've always been a little bit jealous of, because much as I try to do that, that's not natural for me. I am not an unpleasant human being. I'm just different. But I always remember that example. Always remember that example. I knew my brother-in-law for 21 years, and he was the brother I never had, and I had two brothers. So it was, I felt like I learned at his knee.
Yep.
And so no matter what was going on at that time, personal stories are just like people, and people are just like a certain part of the body, or an opinion is just like a certain part of the body. We all have them. So we all have personal stories. And, you feel like Lucy in the Peanuts cartoon with a tin can says 5 cents on it. There's a lot of that. And I think I'm preaching to the choir here. We all have those moments, but that's part and parcel of what we do. People want to sterilize what we do and say, oh, it's just business. No. First thing you have to learn and realize, it's personal. It's personal. You cannot be consumed by it, but it makes you a better advocate when you can say, you know what, this is the difference between them and moving on and not, or this is the difference between them and their bills, or this is the difference between being able to bless the kids once Grandma and Gramps are gone, or mom and dad are gone, or, whatever it is, or this is the difference, when it's a divorce, and being able to settle that as painlessly as you can. So, so that was very important. It's like, whether or not I have empathy, it's not, because empathy suggests that you have, the word itself suggests you have a certain identification with somebody else's struggles. Often I didn't. I've never married, so I don't know the pain of divorce. I don't know the pain of being widowed. I don't know that. My children, as you saw, are four-legged. So struggling with kids, trying to get the kids where they needed to go, all of that stuff, none of those stories are mine. So I don't have empathy, not because I don't want to have it. I fundamentally lack it. But I can listen.
Yep.
I can listen. I can embrace the implications of getting this right or not. And so that was a big timeless lesson for me, is you treat everybody the same, whether it is your $100,000 short sale in Parma, or it's a $600,000 slam dunk sale in Hinckley. I live in North Royalton, so I'm sandwiched between those two communities.
Yeah.
And because in a perfect world, what I tell sellers, all of them, because a lot of them apologize, the lower, the lower value homes, right? Or the lower than median around here, which is about 220, 225 right now. And the bottom line is, I tell them all, in a perfect world, sellers would need two things to sell their home: a Sharpie and a Post-it note. They would whip out the Sharpie, grab a Post-it note, put down a $sign, the number 1 and a capital M on it, post it on the front door, and hope people would come and run. But that's not how this works.
Mhm.
So whether or not your house is worth $1 million, you're retaining me to do a job for you. You should have an experience that feels like it's $1 million. And so proportionately, there's degrees of, how much investment you want to make, fundamental outlay, the time you spend, that kind of thing. But they all want to be communicated with to whatever degree they need to be in order to have all the information they need to make wise decisions throughout their process, be they buyer or seller.
Mhm.
And I am very committed to doing that. And that was at a time when, back 15, 16 years ago, when there was so much, Melinda, I can't agree enough with everything Melinda said. It's like mindset's everything, but they were being sucked into an undertow. You can talk all about your mindset, but hey, I just lost my job.
Mhm.
I've got kids. I've lost my health care. I've lost whatever I've lost. Right.
Mhm.
And so getting through, trying to pierce the darkness, because I have a natural tendency, I'm a fixer.
Yep.
I'm a fixer. I'm into solution-based conversations. And I annoy people to death because I am. Visit the crap if you have to, but don't set up shop there. Just visit it if you have to, and then let's get on with it.
Mhm.
Either the solutions are evident or we brainstorm and we find the solutions. And does that all make sense? Am I rambling?
No, it makes perfect sense. It reminds me of, who's the Miracle Morning guy? He
Hal
said,
Elrod.
yes, give it 5 minutes. Isn't that his thing?
Give it 5 minutes.
You
Yes.
can freak out for 5 minutes, and then after that, let's figure out a solution.
And put that on your book list. Miracle Morning is no joke.
Agreed. I'd absolutely
No
agree.
joke.
So let me ask you this. What were, thinking like more tactical on the realtor side, what skills or knowledge areas did you focus on developing, like, during the last market shift? And did you change, like, I think you've shared with me, I think your first sale was a short sale.
Yes.
So have you kind of restructured, did you restructure then the business you were working on? Would you recommend, people now who are looking for more business to find a different niche? Give me a little insight there.
Okay. So it was very much take what you could get at that time,
Mhm.
And if I might digress just a tiny little bit, when I was in real estate school, the Keller Williams agents drove me crazy. Like, the Kool-Aid was flowing at the career nights. They were all just entirely too happy and having all sorts of, as I called them, they were grinning idiots. And they drove me nuts. But at the same time, they walked their talk.
Mhm.
There was just a lot of brainstorming. I only came to Keller Williams, I'm in my 10th year. So I had gone to a boutique shop right out of real estate school where I spent 4.5 years.
Yep.
And so it was, you just didn't know for the light of day what anything was going to look like. You just didn't. And so I thought about niches. I thought about where I wanted to end up. Everybody has their fantasy about, oh, I'm going to go do luxury. Great. Can you calculate simple interest first? Can you manage that? Can you work a lockbox? Like, for me, it's like walk before you can run.
Yes.
You can want what you want, and you can work in a way that will manifest that. But back then, beggars couldn't be choosers. And I was working with a brother-sister team at the time. And the brother eventually left. He ended up being the team leader at Living in Keller Williams 11 years ago. And
Was it Matt Nelson?
Yes, it was.
He's great.
Well, he's not just my real estate guru. Matt and I were also high school classmates. I've known Matt. We have our 40th coming up. So we've known each other since we were kids. And, we had got in touch on Facebook the year before when our 25th was coming up. And just, it was like no time had passed. We're still just really great buddies. And I was with, he had gotten into business with his sister, Margot, who had been in business for 30 years. And they just showed me the ropes. It's like Margot just said, keep it humble, keep it simple. You're not too good to list anything. You're not too informed to ask questions. Do what you tell people you're going to do, and just, and it's so true. Activity breeds activity.
Yes.
It's when I'm really in lead gen and turning stones over, my luck is usually not front end. I'm not hitting it with any of those people, but I'll get this phone call from somebody I haven't talked to in years.
Yeah.
Out as far out of left field as like Dodger Stadium left field. Hey, my cousin's looking. Hey, I need a list. Hey, I'm looking for an upgrade, whatnot. It just never fails. Activity does breed activity. And so it was, as far as niches go, I think there are a handful of niches, if we're hyper local here. I'm an East Sider with a West Side address, so I have no problem. I grew up in Warrensville Heights. I grew up about 10 minutes from the Living Market Center. And so I am not above going to the East Side and going and taking a listing or going and taking a client. It's just, why not? I'm a realtor. There's gas in the car. Let's go. But I think there are some natural niches that work, that are a good fit. Get connected with a local VFW. Veterans are terribly underserved.
Yeah.
They just are. And you've got a lot of agents who don't necessarily understand all the rules of the road with veterans. VFW is a good place. Assuming you subscribe to an organized religion, faith, whatnot, connect with your church.
Mm-hmm.
Always a good place to cultivate business. I mean, do not be tacky about it. That is not why primarily you're there, but that's where you can find good connections. At the risk of sounding a little macabre, funeral homes. Folks got to sell funeral homes. Talk to funeral directors. Greater Cleveland is an aging area. Okay. You've still got enough people that have been here, old school, whatnot. That's an aging, probate attorneys. I got a bunch of probate attorneys that I've transacted for because they knew that their business hours, their billable business hours were worth more than a real estate commission.
Right.
I'm fortunate enough within a mile of my front door are 7 lenders. So I'm talking to those folks all the time. Margot and I used to, a handful of times we would bring in, whatever goodies and, hey, come talk to us about real estate. And people loved it, back when.
When you said VFW, like I immediately was thinking when you said veterans are a community that's wildly underserved, I couldn't agree more. And then it's like, okay, how can you double down on that? What lender programs can you get connected with to offer that? Like, I think there's so many different facets of the community you can connect with to like double down on that one.
Right. And KW has put some resources to this. They have the, a group of VA, I don't remember what it's called, but they do have somebody heading up their VA advocacy, how best to get, VA clients, be they buyer or seller, get them the most for their money, make sure they're well represented, because I've done VA where the last one I did was VA both sides, the seller was VA, the buyer was VA. And I do know my way around, but it is a nice niche. Jill had mentioned also, if you're not sure where you want to go with it, I am a big believer in being, like you said, I am a big believer in being learning based. You know, it isn't just about getting in your 30, or if you're new, getting in your 30 because you have to have it in your first year, and then you're 30 before your 30-year birthday. You can't know enough in our business. Things are always changing. I drive some people crazy because usually I often have an opinion. More often than not, I'd like to think it's an informed opinion, but sometimes it's not. And, or perhaps there's a challenge, a challenge to my opinion. At that point, then, I've cultivated the gift of shutting up and listening and learning, because it's not about, like Melinda said, it's not about me. It's not about us. You know, if first of all, if you don't come at this with a servant's heart, you have picked the wrong career.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we're not talking about, oh, I did this because I like people. Please, at 10 o'clock at night, when everybody's having a temper tantrum, you don't like anybody.
Yeah.
All right. But you have to have a servant's heart to do this business. You just do. And part of having a servant's heart, again, is just staying learning based. You get into, I mean, yeah, obviously the race is on, because you don't want to be, my birthday is in December. The last thing I feel like doing at Christmas time, you know, in that window between Thanksgiving and my birthday, is like, oh shoot, I need to go to CE shop and start rolling through that. I don't want, please. I've got another year and a half left. I should be done just at the slowest pace. I should be done with everything at some point this summer. All right. But stay learning based, make contacts with people like your productivity coach, you know, contact those folks. Do not be afraid to run something past your broker if there's something funky going on. It's what they're there for.
Yeah.
They have your livelihood in their hands. So implicitly, their signature is right alongside yours on all the paperwork you've signed. So, you know, and I cannot speak to what's going on over at Living, but I know Rob Quinn over at Elevate is a phone call I can make no problem, and he's usually pretty speedy about returning it. So education, you know, so to circle back a little bit, education, if you're not sure what niche you want to, you know, assuming you want to fall in a niche, let some education inform that, and talk to people. You know, we're all here for each other. We have you know, our culture, we thrive. Keller Williams has made its international reputation on its culture.
Yeah.
That was probably the most important thing to Gary, you know, when everything first went south and he had to start over. What were the incentives that he could provide such that people wouldn't want to leave? Well, and of course, bottom line was profit share. Everybody wanted a little bit more money, but he knew implicitly that he was going to have to foster a culture where everybody got to win and that there was communication. So then I love the old saying of, you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So in those 5, especially if you're early on in your career, it's going to be important, the importance of observation in your respective market centers, right? You know, who are those agents that are really killing it? Or who are those agents that, you know, maybe they don't have 20 million in for the year right now, but they're out there hitting it and they contribute and they've got an intelligent thing to say and they've got a good word for you. Latch onto them. That's what I did. And, you know, and start picking their brain, you know, and then when it was my turn, when I started meeting more people or met people again, because I had the benefit of almost 5 years of doing this when I walked in the door. So I made my presence known kind of quickly, whether or not I meant to, it just kind of happened. And there are people that, at the risk of my own arrogance, I was able to touch and pour into and run stuff past. Names like Joy Larson, Dan Mitchin, a handful of folks. Those names may not mean anything to anybody on the call, but these people have designed lives that people been at it 20, 25 years could only dream of.
Yeah.
And it's very humbling to me that I got to put a thumbprint in and light the way for them, even in the smallest way. And so, and the other thing I'd say is you gotta want it. You gotta want it. The big why is real. You've got to want it. So what is that? Get out your vision board. If you don't have one, go buy one. Or just get some piece of poster board and get your Sharpie and start writing stuff down. What do you want to do? What do you want to do? And then maybe that informs your niche. But I think the one trap, and I don't mean to go on and on, but the one trap that you're going to want to avoid, and there's a lot of this, and Jill, I know you can speak to this, is the getting ready to get ready to get ready to get ready.
Analysis paralysis.
Analysis paralysis. Here it is. Here's the cure for that. Just get on the phone.
Yeah.
Just get on the phone. You've got people, you've got your raving fans. You've got people who know you, like you, trust you. You've got, God willing, you've got supportive family. God willing, you've got good friends. God willing, you have those blessings. You know, James Bond was not a realtor. Okay. So you can't be hiding, you know, hey, I am with Keller Williams Living. I am with KW Elevate. I have been so for X number of months, weeks, years. And I'm really excited what's going on right now. But obviously, you know, if I'm calling you, I can use a little help. And people want to help.
Yes.
People want to help. And, you know, who do you know? Who do you know? You know?
That's so good.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you, Janet, like, what would be your last, like, parting advice for this market? And I think you shared it. Like, it's picking up the phone.
Yeah.
And sometimes you might have just said this. We were talking about it at one of our meetings, maybe ALC or last team meeting, but people just want to be asked. Like, sometimes you think there could be a seed planted, I might want to buy or sell, but until you just pick up the phone and ask, like, that is what gets the ball rolling. So
Exactly. You have not because you have asked not. Biblical principle, but it is so true. And, you know, the whole idea of the care call, hey, I was just thinking of you, that was obviously born of the COVID experience. All right. I remember that first phone call with Gary and Jay, right of the day of the shutdown. And it's just like, start picking up the phone, seeing how people are. You know, we're all trying to get through to this together. And I often wondered, all those people that were on that call, and there were thousands of us, how many made it through COVID? Whether they made it or family made it. You know, millions of people were gone a short year later, right? So there's interspersed. I mean, if you come across authentic, if you come across, I am diseased with keeping it real. Jill and I haven't known each other terribly long, but she's seen it. All right. And I keep it pretty real. So usually it's like, hey, what's going on? Whatever. And usually that listens because people know what I'm doing. Hey, how's the market? Well, funny you ask. So, you know, things are good, or, hey, I could be doing better, or holy moly. And all those answers have been my answer once or twice. And it's like, who do you know? Who can I be talking to? Or what do you think? And these are people who know me, like me, or love me, and trust me. Bless you.
Thank you.
And so you just, I would say, just stop worrying about the getting ready to get ready. Come on in. The water's fine. And one last thing, if I might.
Sure.
It was very important to me. You know, sometimes I struggled. I got my real estate license in November of 2010. Within a year, almost a year to the date later, my mom ended up in the hospital. And that was like the start of her decline. And so for those next several years, I was taking care of my mom 20 miles away from my home. I barely did anything other than my house other than sleep. I lost my job at Bank of America. The operations center closed in 2013. And then I had to go into real estate full time. And it was just like, what am I doing? What am I doing? What am I doing? And so I was trying to build a business, trying to take care of my mom. I was her primary caregiver, the whole thing. And my mom passed away during the Cavs run in 2016 when they won it all. They won in 7 games. My mom died the morning of game 6. And her funeral was the day of the parade. Boy, that was hilarious. It actually was. It was pretty funny. But a couple of weeks after all of that, I had gone back to church, and my pastor was in the foyer after service and came right up to me, big hug, how you doing, whatnot. And I said, you know what? I feel like I'm worshiping at the altar of now what? Everything is clear. Mom is gone. I don't have to do anything other than sell her house. There's no unfinished business. But the last 5 years have been my survival and all about her. And now she's gone. And I don't know what to do. I'm 5 years old. I was 50 years old at the time. I don't know what to do. And I just don't know what anything can look like. I haven't thought for a moment about what I wanted out of this business, even though I'd been in productivity coaching and vision boards and, what could this look like? How beautiful could it be? And dare I even broach that after what's just happened? Mm-hmm. And his name is Rick, and Rick took me aside and he said, do you know, and I would charge you with all of this. He said, do you know Psalm 23? Of course I do. For believers on the phone call, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want, blah, blah, blah. I would encourage you to look it up. It's 6 whole verses. He said, what is the last verse? I said, surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all of the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. And he said, Janet, it's okay to ask for good things. It's okay to ask for good things. And whatever you subscribe to, God willing, you subscribe to something that grounds you, something that is greater than who you are. All right. It's okay to ask for those good things. And it's okay to ask for the courage and the innards to go after those good things. It's okay. So in my darkest times, when I've struggled, when you feel undeserving, when you just, maybe you're not manifesting in the morning, or doing that, meditating or offering prayer or offering gratitude like Belinda taught, and it's so important. If you can't, if you don't find the sunrise a gift, you got bigger problems than what your business looks like. Mm-hmm. Okay. So I would encourage you to start in the morning. If for the sunrise alone, you've got something to be grateful for, and spend some time asking for good things. And by extension, not just for yourself, but for those who love you. And leave it open-ended. We're all taught, we're taught about the value in open-ended questions. Ask yourself the open-ended question. Who can I help today? Who can I help today? Like, not, is there anyone I can help to? No, somebody needs your help. Mm-hmm. Somebody needs you. So who can you help today?
So good. Janet, I cannot thank you enough. I actually, you guys should see the notes I wrote between both of you. This was fantastic. Something I took away is, yes, there's strategy and there's picking up the phone and there's being relational, but it also just comes back to mindset and serving. And I appreciate you guys so very much. I thank you for being on the call, and thank you to everyone who joined us.
Thanks for your time, everybody. Thanks, Jill.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.